pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the Father, we thank you for tonight, and we ask that you just help us to do business for the good of the citizens of the community. In Jesus' name, amen.
This is item C, approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Item D, citizens' comments. So at this point, we would allow citizens to comment, and they're allowed 3 minutes. Each guest is welcome to comment, but they must state their first and last name and where they reside. If anybody has any comments, there's a lot of new faces in here. I think most people are in here for agenda items. Raise your hand if you have an agenda item. Okay,
Close citizen comments.
very good. Item E, this is approval of the minutes. So this is to approve the Planning Commission regular meeting minutes from October 10th, 2022. So we have a lot split for Cloverleaf, lot 900 and 904. We amended Article 12.132, the subdivision regulations. We had a site plan for boat and RV storage and a site plan for office and flex space.
I move to approve the minutes from the October 10, 2022 meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. So this is item F. This is Board of Zoning Appeals. So this is F.1, the sign variance for Genesis Blastoff Bay, case number VAR 22-3. Michael O'Donnell of Genesis Health Clubs has submitted a sign variance request for Blastoff Bay and Genesis Development located off the south frontage road between 183rd Street and 199th Goddard Road. The sign variance request is for a building and marketing sign taller than what is allowed in the C2 General Business District and larger than the maximum square footage of what is allowed in the C2 district. The developer would like to build a sign which exceeds 10 feet maximum height, which exceeds the 150-foot square footage requirements. The sign being proposed is around 42 feet tall and has around 493 plus minus square feet of signage. A notice for the public hearing was sent out. Per the subdivision regulations, there have been no comments. So under authorized variances and findings of fact, Article 10, 107.c, it's listed over here. What is an acceptable variance? And I've highlighted it in orange that an acceptable variance for varying the applicable dimensional sign provision of Section 7-102 regarding general standards and Section 7-104 regarding district regulations is an acceptable variance. And then we go into KSA 12759E, and which will outline the 5 criteria. 1, that the variance request arises from such conditions which are unique to the property in question, which is not ordinarily found in the same zoning district, and is not created by an action or actions of the property owner or the applicant. So it's not created by the property owner, it's unique to the property because the business is the largest commercial development in Goddard, and it is unlikely to have this land host more signs in the area considering what is in that proximity to and around that area, and because of the proximity to US 54 and the distance with it being screened by a tree row. So there probably will, like I said, be, there actually probably might be some more signs in the area, but this one, for marketing the Blastoff Bay, since that business is so far behind 54 and behind the tree road, they would consider it adversely affected if they are not allowed that variance. So that number 2, the granting of the variance will not adversely affect the rights of additional property owners and residents. It will not adversely affect other property owners, as most of them are commercial. The ones commercial, the ones to the west are single family screened by a tree row. The sign sits around 1,000 feet away from the tree row. So there's a subdivision residential subdivision to the west of the development that is screened by a tree row, and this one, the sign is proposed to be around 1,000 feet away from it. The strict application of the provisions of the regulation from which a variance is requested will constitute unnecessary hardship upon the property owner represented in the application. It is common practice, as you're aware, for larger signs with larger size commercial developments, noting that the more square footage a sign has is directly correlated with the marketing potential, and not allowing for this reduces marketing potential on that commercial lot. That the variance, and number 4, that the variance desired not adversely affect the public health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare, and that the granting of the variance desired will not be opposed to the general spirit and intent of these regulations, so it will not affect health, safety, or welfare, and it is the purpose of competition helping Goddard grow, and marketing development that was partially funded with sales tax and revenue bonds. So this is the Genesis development and the Blastoff Bay splash park is inside of the Goddard Star Bond District, which is a sales tax and revenue bond district. So this will actually help market it more, which would be in line with the purposes of the Star Bond. So what you see before you is a map. This is the R cut that's being proposed. This is a cross-section that was originally proposed, but it's no longer going to be included in the R cut, but it could happen at a future point. This cross was a general location, but it could be anywhere along this area over here. And as you can see, this is the residential development over here. Blastoff Bay is right off down this area over here. The hotel is right here, and Genesis is over here. And then you have the natatorium and the splash park, which I said Blastoff Bay is down here in this section over here. So as you can see, it's got a really large frontage. These are out parcel lots. This is Grand Slam right here. This is Crown Drive. So this is what they're proposing for Blastoff Bay. To meet the monument sign requirements, we've required that they have at least 50% of the base be equal to at least 50% of the frontage, so of the wall, of the sign face. And we asked that they brought this down further to minimize gap in between. This is the area. So the sign would probably sit further back around here, off the screen. But as you can see, the tree row, in winter the leaves drop off, but spring, summer, the foliage really blocks this whole area. So allowing for a larger sign will help market it, hopefully compete with its trees. And as the R-cut comes in, it'll cross through here. We're hoping to remove some of these trees in the future, but there would still be a large space there between what's being proposed and the actual frontage road, and then actually the US 54. Public notice was given incurring a small cost. Legally, it's approved as the form. It is recommended that the Planning Commission approve the sign variance request for Genesis Blastoff Bay, case number VAR-22-3. We'll open to comments, questions, or thoughts on the matter.
No comment.
The tree row don't need the added height, for sure. What do we get, Brahms, 35 feet?
35.
That was without a tree row.
Yeah, they're a little bit closer. Brahms is a little bit closer to the. This dip out here is this frontage road as it continues over here. I think Brahms is slightly closer to 54. I couldn't tell you exactly, but there is that area there.
Why the opposite of, why it wasn't seem to be so far back? Is it just?
You talk about with this.
Yeah.
Originally I put it over here, but it could be anywhere around this area. The thing is, there's a ditch right here. Actually, it shows it back here, but originally we were looking at possibly approving, bringing it before the Planning Commission for approval of a variance to encroach on the city right-of-way here, possibly putting it over closer into this tree row to be closer to 54. But there's too many utilities in here. And so we talked about possibly straddling the difference between being in this right-of-way between the frontage road and this private property line. But as you can see here, there's actually a ditch there, and there's a culvert here and a culvert over here. And so the whole idea of impairing this ditch would not be good. And so then if they moved it back even a little bit further, you might as well just put it back on the private property. So originally we were looking at this whole area putting a sign, but it just was inconvenient given the utilities. And there's actually a pressurized water line that runs right over here with a 20-foot easement. And so it'd be difficult to figure out how to put a sign location, also with Kansas Gas being right here, and then telecom lines running adjacent to it. So I marked it over here, but really it can be anywhere over here or over here on the lots that would market that development. But even if they pushed it all the way up to here, or even put it in this corner, this over here is a detention pond, here's a detention pond over here. Mostly it's just to keep it out of the ditch a little bit further, but even if they put it over here. Also, there's the idea of how the R-cut will impact it. If they push it over this way a little bit, they'll give you more room for the R-cut, so it might help with visibility, but the final designs for the R-cut have been submitted to KDOT, so this design element might change a little bit. So they just have to be sensitive to that.
I move we approve the variance request, case number BR 22-3.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. It's item G, there is none. This is item H. H1 is a site plan for Camp Bow Wow. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and call the architect. He wasn't able to make it, so I'm going to go ahead and see if I can bring him on so that he can represent. Just bear in mind. Give me 1 second here. If I can't reach him here, then I'll try.
Hello. Please state your name after the tone, and Google Voice will try to connect you.
Micah Scoggins, City of Daughter.
Architecture. This is Chris.
Hey Chris, it's Micah. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the background and analysis, and so if you want to be on standby now, the Planning Commission will be available for questions and comments.
Sounds great.
Thank you, sir. So background, Clark-Architecture and Baughman Company have submitted a site plan application for a new Camp Bow Wow franchise generally located on the corner of US 54 and 199th. This development will be to the west of Sonic and to the east of Orchland. Clark-Architecture and Baughman have worked with the city's public work department and the city engineer for stormwater management and the use of the city's sanitary sewer system for the removal of dog feces. The developer is asking for a sign, oh, excuse me, that's wrong. The developer was asking for a sign variance, but it's not anymore. All new commercial buildings are required to submit a site plan, which has been included in attachment H.1c. The development applied for a special land use, which was approved by the Planning Commission on July 11, 2022, and finalized and approved by City Council on July 18, 2022. The Planning Commission is reviewing the site plan for a new Camp Bow Wow franchise. Zoning C2, General Business District, special use approved. Building gross floor area around 8,000, height around 17%, lot coverage 16.9, 0.47 acre impervious offset with a total lot size of 1.1 acres. This is the landscaping plan. The total site plan is in your attachment. As you can see here, the building sits about right around the middle. The parking is going to be all in the front. 2 access points onto the north frontage road. Orchlands would be over here in this area, and then Sonic would be over here in this area. This little area back here is the run area. This is a zoom up view of the run. As mentioned, they did work with the Public Works Department and the city engineer for how they're going to flush the dog feces, because you can't leave an open hole in an area. You can't open a manhole and just kind of leave it open, because stormwater gets into that area, and if it goes into the sewer treatment plant, it removes the amount of volume of wastewater that can be treated, and so they have to keep it closed. So they have kind of designed an ingenious way of managing that as sort of a flush system. This is the elevations. This is what you would see from the north frontage road. So if you're driving along north frontage road or US 54, this would be the south facing elevation. This is what you would see if you're in the Orchland parking lot. You'd be looking to the east, and this is the west elevation. They did remove this Camp Bow Wow sign. I told them that they're only allowed 1 wall sign for each street they're abutting. They're only abutting 1 street, which is the frontage road. And so I said they can go for a variance request if they would like, but they chose not to, so they're just not going to include that sign. This would be the north elevation, so if you're looking south at the building, and this would be if you're in the Sonic parking lot and you're looking to the west, you would see this. They're going to enclose the dumpster per requirements. All facades are required to be approved by the Planning Commission. They're calling out the different material over here, and I believe it's some kind of fiber cement paneling that they're using over in this area to cover the general metal. This is the monument sign they're proposing. It is 10 feet maximum, and they're meeting that 10 foot, and it's 7 by 11, so it's well within the 150 square footage requirement. Financially none, legally approved as the form. It is recommended the Planning Commission approve the site plan for the new Camp Bow Wow franchise contingent upon approval of the facade covering. And Chris, if you want to speak at this moment, feel free. Any comments that you might want to have on the agenda item?
None that I need to add, honestly. Here to answer any questions that Planning Commission may have, though.
Chris, do you want to talk about how you're removing the dog feces in the back?
Sure. So Camp Bow Wow has essentially their dog toilets is what they use. They have a closed lid, which keeps rainwater out. They're a little more engineered and high tech than a typical toilet. Mostly just for the waterproofing and different volume of material. But in layman's terms, they're pretty much just a doggy toilet.
So they'll be flushing it. That helps keep the rainwater out so it doesn't displace volume in the treatment plant. Normally, Commissioner Klein would ask about stormwater runoff. Do you want to talk about that at all?
I can talk about runoff.
Feel free, yeah.
Okay. So we're pretty much.
Well, first and last name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kurt Harris. I work for Baughman, Wichita. Basically, we're taking the stormwater. It currently kind of sheets across the site and goes to the northeast corner by Sonic. And
The green line in center is the pointer.
okay, is there a grading plan in here? Okay. So right now, the water kind of drains out here. There's a break kind of in the middle of the site, and water drains towards Kellogg, and then the rest of the site drainage kind of comes from over here and around down here to Sonic. So what we're doing is we're breaking the grading at the facade of the building, and the roof drains and everything come up from the front, hit this pavement, and come out to the street and into there's a flume over here that goes into the Kellogg right away. On the back side, we're picking up water right here, and we're still directing it with a swale back around this area, but we're actually reducing the volume that's going there, so we shouldn't be creating any issues for Sonic with our new, increased impervious area. This area here, the dog run area, that has artificial turf, and there is a trench drain around the whole thing that picks it up. That actually also goes into sanitary sewer. We worked with the treatment plant, and they're allowing us to do that because we don't have any storm to take this to, and they're going to be routinely washing this area, and so we don't want this water to come out of this area and sit back here by Sonic, because this is going to have dog feces and stuff in it, so it's going to be going into sanitary sewer. So this area actually dumps into the sanitary sewer, and we have traps and stuff like that so that the gas doesn't come through the grass. And then, yeah, this just continues to drain over this way, and we accept water off of this site the way it currently does. We aren't impeding any water coming onto our site. Any questions? Yeah.
Hey Chris, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Have we already submitted the plans to MABCD for review?
We have not.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody see anything you're concerned with?
No.
So the whole front facade is fiber cement siding and the sides and back is pretty much metal.
Is it just a portion of the front, what's that, 5%?
No, the whole thing, south elevation. FCS is fiber cement siding, so it's on the red and the gray part. But once you wrap around the side,
Then it turns to metal.
yep. A little bump out, CWS, this composite wood siding. That's on both ends.
That's it.
I know Harlan's okay with the drainage?
Yeah, they work with the, do you have any more comments about that? But they worked with the city engineer and public works director. Did Harlan have any comments? Harlan's sick. He was supposed to be here today, but he had the flu. So, and so was the public works director, but he overbooked. So there's that too. But there hasn't been any comments from Harlan directly about this, and I haven't heard any negative feedback. I think Boffman does a pretty good job with the engineering, and so they, as far as I know, there hasn't been any particular comments or concerns about that. Do you? I haven't heard anything, so if there was, I'm sure it would have been addressed by now. It's always designed with intent, and then of course it can be, you might run into some issues that has to be modified, but for the most part it's been approved as it is. So.
All Harlan's okay with it?
Is the facade covering still being debated, or why are we?
Oh, I always require that since the design change requirements, facades have come up a lot in terms of design aesthetics for the city. There's been a lot of debate about that, some concerns, some comments, some thoughts. You know, facades, especially for buildings, design is in the eye of the beholder. So it's good that the planning commission review the facade, and I want to overemphasize that for every site plan, so that the planning commission is okay with what's being presented, especially when the prominent feature is the one that's touching the street that you will see. And so that's why I always say every site plan, if you're okay with it, approve it, and you're approving the facade covering as well. And that's just to just re-emphasize that you're okay with it, because that's the way it's written, is that the planning commission is accepting the material that they're presenting, whatever it is. Obviously, the concern has always been just a corrugated metal building dropped with nothing on it. And so metal on metal, you know, masonry on metal, fiber cement, ethos, anything else to help cover that up, so that you don't just have a metal building floating out there with nothing on it. So that was the concern that arose. So we re-emphasize the site plan that the facade covering should be reviewed and approved by planning commission.
Is there a separate site utility plan?
I think there is a utility plan on there in the agenda packet of how they're proposing to run water and sewer to it.
Right.
There's probably about 20 pages in there. So.
There it is. So the manhole that's in the back, is that a separate, it's a PPS? Separate project, or is that part of the?
We've put together a drainage plan, or PPS to go with that, because we have to actually bring the sanitary sewer from the lots above, and we're running about a 280-foot, 8-inch extension down there so that we can get sanitary to the site.
Motion
Looking for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the site plan of the new Camp Bow Wow franchise contingent upon approval of the facade and covering.
or second?
All in favor?
Uh,
Aye.
Very good. This is item H.2, so this is the Bridger at Maple preliminary plat. So Bachman Company has submitted an application on behalf of the development firm Angel Fire UV, or UW, excuse me, LLC for a preliminary plat for the development located on Maple between 167 and 183rd Street. This development is for 179 lot 7 rezone as R2 for the building of duplexes and some single-family detached housing. Planning Commission denied rezoning of the land for split vote on June 13, 2022. The City Council vetoed the Planning Commission approved the rezoning for the land on June 20th, 2022 with a supermajority. The developer is buffering the homes to the north by including single-family detached housing on the north end of the development. The preliminary plat will be followed by a final plat in January 2023 to be reviewed by the Planning Commission, which will have to be finalized by the City Council before it can be recorded with the county. So the Planning Commission is considering approving a preliminary plat for today for the Bridger at Maple development. Number of lots, 179. Zoning is R2, two-family residential, and land use is duplex and single-family detached. Gross acreage is around 72. Square feet is what, 3.1 million. And this is the preliminary plat. This area over here, there's about 24 lots. These have been dedicated for single-family detached. The remainder will be duplexes from here down to here. The reserves will be for drainage, so there's reserve here, and then one in the northwest corner and northeast corner. Maple is down here. This is the drainage concept that's being proposed. This is the utility lines that we proposed. Financially none, legally approved as to form. It is recommended the planning commission approve the preliminary plat for the Bridger at Maple development. And we do have Baughman here to represent the developer.
To that exception, Bowman First Edition, that's that existing house.
Correct, yeah, there's a house right over here. Ballman owned this land and the land to the east, over here on the east of it as well. And so he's the one who sold the land originally to the developer.
Is it a tree road to the north of the property line?
There's a tree road, right over here.
Is that remaining or?
As far as I know, some of it's going to be remaining, but it's going to be hard to say. Chris, do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I can try.
Yeah, give it a go.
Chris Rose with Baughman Company, agent for the applicant. You know, I would assume that that's going to stay. Now, the only thing that might remove it if there's sanitary sewer, and I did not look on the utility plan for it. Yeah, there's no sewer up in there, so as long as, you know, Evergy or somebody else doesn't go in there and cut trees out, then I would say that they're going to stay. Most developers always want to keep the trees, so I'd assume, I'd assume that there's not going to, Evergy probably wouldn't go back in there. I don't see them doing that, but they could. If we're not running sanitary sewer back there, I think the tree will probably stay. Gives a good buffer between the lots to the north anyway.
Right.
And those two cul-de-sacs there, because they are smaller, are the single-family lots. I think there was something in the zoning, during the zoning, that had a little buffer there, so.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Those are small ones. 60 to 130.
Were the residents locally notified or?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
they were here.
Well, yeah, the first time, no, the second time, I mean, this,
The second time?
I mean, this.
City council.
This is, we're just approving the plat.
This is
so it's
platted.
already,
Okay.
it's already,
Zoning has already been approved. yeah.
it's done.
Yeah, that part's already done.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we are required by state law during the rezoning process to send out letters to everyone within 200 feet in the city limits and everyone within 1,000 feet if they're in the county, if the city limits above the county. So the residents to the north, they have larger lots and larger houses, and so they had that concern about the duplexes being in such close proximity to them, and so those concerns were heard by the developers, so they're buffering the existing duplexes with a single family. To the east, there's nothing out there. It's open farmland except for a mobile park. And then to the west, there's open farmland except for the Baldwin property and Baldwin's are over here, and there was a house, I think, right over here on a larger piece of property. And then this is all open farmland, and then there was a horse barn or something around that, a ranch over here, which I talked to the property owner a while back, and I think they're selling it or something, but I think the father is selling the land, so. And the mobile park would be somewhere over here. And this is all open agricultural.
So the roadways that go up on the, I don't know my directions, at the top,
North.
down,
Yeah,
left,
north.
on, where do they go?
Nowhere, so these are cul-de-sacs, they're dead end.
No, down to your right just a little bit. Where
To the
you
west.
come out of the cul-de-sac and you turn.
Oh, these ones, these dead end. They do dead end too. So these don't actually go anywhere. They're open for the potential of future development, same as over here. This is open to future development over here when they develop, if it develops. This is more likely to develop than this side over here because obviously this dumps onto this property over here, but that's not impossible. The whole idea is that since it's not a requirement to have multiple entrances into a subdivision that has greater than 50 units, it's kind of debatable, but it's not codified. So we talked about that with the developer and with the engineering firm and kind of went back and forth on that. So that's why they left these as sort of an open approach. If hypothetically there was something that impaired this area, people could escape out this way or out this way into the open ground over here. So that's kind of what it is. We went back and forth. It's a very north-south lot, as you can see. So it makes it tight, especially with the Baldwin property over here, to introduce a second access point onto Maple so close to the existing one, because then we would be, usually you want at least 350 feet in linear distance between the two entrances, and squish them together like that makes it that you have two cars exiting at the same in close proximity onto Maple, which would be a hazard. So yeah, you can have cross conflict in traffic. So that's why, and like I said, it's a very north-south lot, so it makes it awkward, and then this part gets cut out over here. So these have been left sort of open, which is not uncommon. We have that in the paid edition, Cindy Street, for example, kind of dead ends, it's just left open. In case somebody needs to exit dramatically onto that area, then you can. You know, or if for whatever reason, fire or police or somebody wants to get into that area, then they can have access that way.
When Hopper was that way, but now it ties into Rustic Creek.
That's right. Yeah, so the idea is that it's opening up for future development, should it happen, and in all likelihood, it's probably that this side would develop first, because this is also part of Bowman land over here. So Bowman, if this one does well, Bowman could then turn around and sell this to the developer or another developer, and then they would just tie it in here, and then you would have another access point on the Maple. But at least that other access point would be further away from this proposed one, so then you'd have that distance requirement. And I always forget the speed limit. I want to say it's between 30 and 40 on Maple, but it might be higher. So
Maple, it's 40.
40. So you want to have at least 350 feet, somewhere around that, to separate them.
Looks good.
You have any
Good
issues?
layout.
Looking for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Bridger at Maple Development preliminary plat.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Chris, you're welcome to stay if you want for the rest of the... Whatever you choose. This is item H.3, so this is a Strutz Meat Locker site plan. So Evans Building Co. has submitted a site plan application for a new Strutz Meat Locker retail business located just north of the existing Strutz business. This development will be on the west side of Main Street, across from City Hall, on the vacant lot between the existing Strutz Meat Locker and John B. Barrett Building. The city sold this lot to Strutz Meat Locker on November 2nd, 2022 in anticipation of a future building to expand Strutz business. The existing business is considered a non-conforming use due to it being a butcher shop for slaughter. This being the case, the new building cannot have any slaughter operations inside of it, but it can function for rendering meat into marketable portions and distribution of prepackaged meats for retail. So the existing Strutz Meat Locker is a slaughter operation. That's a non-conforming use on our central business district, but it's grandfathered in. And so the new lot that they bought from the city back in 2020, they want to move their retail operation. It's kind of a confined space in there now. If you go into Strutz, if you're familiar with Strutz, you go and it's kind of a confined space. They've really wanted to expand that for a long time. Their business is doing well. They can't do the slaughter operation on a new site, so they're going to open up their existing building for more slaughter operations and move the retail into a bigger building. So that's what they're proposing. This has been in the works, like I said, since 2020. Planning Commission is reviewing the site plan for a new retail store for Stroot's Meat Locker. Zoning is Central Business District. Building gross floor area is 8,100 square feet. Height is 19, percentage lot coverage 58, 9,400 impervious area. Total lot size 0.32 acres. So this is the proposed building on the existing empty lot. We're currently in this building over here. This is Stroot's. This is the Barrett building. This is the north elevation, so if you were looking south at the building, this is the west elevation, so if you were back in the alley. This is looking down, the aerial perception. This is the front, the east elevation looking onto the street. This is the concept rendering that they proposed. Financially and unlegally approved as the form. It is recommended the Planning Commission approve the site plan for the Stroot's Meat Locker building contingent upon approval of the facade covering. I do believe Evans Building Co. is here. So if you guys do have any questions about that and how it's connecting to existing city utilities or anything of that nature, feel free to ask. Is this in works with MABCD as well, or no? Not yet.
No, very preliminary.
Okay. We always encourage them that they're welcome to consider that route, but obviously if the Planning Commission changes something, then they would have to turn around and change it with MABCD, so. But there's always a review process with MABCD as well. Did you have a chance to talk with them about what they're retailing? I've heard a lot of things, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, they've got a lot of ideas as far as
The retail?
the retail side of it.
I mean, I know you're gonna have your prepackaged meat in a cooler, but I also heard tell of sandwiches. Is that a real thing, or?
Possibility. I think they're still trying to.
We're not gonna approve it unless there's sandwiches.
One in Old Bay, they'll actually, you can buy smoked meat there.
Is that right?
Cheaply.
I know they're trying to do something. Obviously, this is 8,000 square feet. They're going big. They're trying to. It's almost the exact same size as Camp Bow Wow, if you can imagine. So imagine Camp Bow Wow, except on a third of an acre. It's a big building. So they're doing well with what they're proposing. I know they wanted to have sort of a viewing aspect of it as well, where you could see meat hanging and how they're cutting it into prime cuts and select cuts and things of that nature. But I heard tell they wanted to do a sandwich aspect. That's why they're having this canopy over here as well for outdoor seating, patio space. It was supposed to be for that reason. I can't confirm that because I don't want to sell the sandwich idea and find out it's not going to happen. So just to be aware, that was what was pitched as part of the retail aspect.
Okay, I'm all for it.
Is it the access to the animals and stuff, is that gonna be pretty much the same? Is that gonna change at all?
No change to that. Through the back of the existing building.
What's the gravel, is that a gravel area?
No, that's actually going to be paved. Is it? I believe it was paved, correct?
What area are you talking about?
The approach here on the back
Yeah,
for freight trucks, commercial.
Yes, I believe that's paved. Correct.
will this tie into the existing building?
Yes.
Or just
Yeah.
I guess J.D. Johnson with Evans Building
Thank
Company.
you very much. Green is
May-
the PowerPoint if you want.
Mays, Kansas. Oh yeah, that's way too smart for me. So yeah, basically, right about there
is the separation point between the new and existing, and the existing will be facelifted to look like the new building, so it'll all be
Tied
one.
together.
Yes, correct.
All the roof systems pitched to go back to the alley.
Correct. Well, yes, so the new building will be, and then we're gonna have to kind of retrofit the existing roof into the new roof in some locations, so. But yes, all the new will go back towards the alley, which is kind of where the lot drains now, so.
Is that gonna be any issue?
Not sure. We'd have to run that more by Harlan. Like I said, he was sick. He didn't provide any comments on this aspect, neither did Public Works. I mentioned the whole drainage into the alley. It's gravel, so it's compacted gravel back in that alley. And we've discussed the idea of paving it, but if you do a paving aspect, there probably might have to be curb and gutter and storm drains and so we'd have to take that into account. But right now they're discharging into the alley, which is what the alley is supposed to be there for. So the water will either travel north or south onto Santa Fe or north onto First Avenue. So we would have to take a look at that in more depth, but for now it's just a normal building discharging into the alley like it's designed to do.
That's a lot of rough area going to one place. That's the only reason why I asked.
I know Santa Fe does not drain well.
No, Santa Fe does not drain well. It's true.
But is that a city issue?
I think that's more of a city issue, yes.
It is an ongoing city issue, for sure. At some point, some of these alleys are going to have a retrofit or some kind
Go
of...
underground, doesn't get,
Possibly, yeah. I mean, and we could carry the water. Like I said, Harlan was supposed to be here. He was sick, and so I hesitate to speak as an engineer, not being one by profession. But I would say that the alley is meant to carry water. Whether or not it's going to be, how we're going to have to engineer all the water in the future, it's something that we're going to have to look into. But it'd be a city issue.
It would be a city issue, and this may be the perfect reason to jumpstart getting that started right there.
We'll certainly capture some more property tax off it to perhaps incentivize that.
And it's something we need. Like I said, you go in there on a Saturday, you can barely get in the door.
Mhm.
It's elbow to elbow.
It's packed, yeah. And I know a lot of the staff are busy with the rendering process, and so that somebody's got to come from the back and swoop around to the front to manage the till and then go back around. So this will be, they'll have dedicated staff, I believe, doing the retail portion over here. So the ones that
I think don't you step up into there?
The current one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Correct.
Is
it's
it,
about a good 2
are-
feet.
is it gonna be brought down to grade? Is the intention to be down at sidewalk height at the new double doors, you think?
We hope to accomplish that
Okay.
and tie them in. So yeah, but yes, the existing one is a step up quite a bit actually. So
But the new portion will be sidewalk
we're
level.
gonna try to get it down to sidewalk level and probably a step somewhere along or a ramp between the two inside.
Yeah.
I think those should.
Looks good. Much needed.
the white portion, what kind of panel is that?
It's a horizontal architectural panel. So the gray is a charcoal stucco. The lower 3 foot is a masonry, and then the crimson red and the polar white are a horizontal architectural panel.
Is the sign going to be illuminated inside, or have you talked about it?
So basically, like I said, this is very preliminary. The owner doesn't want to pour a ton into it because they want to make sure they can do it. But the talk has been either backlit letters or possibly like a light sitting on the canopy and shining back at the letters.
Okay.
But none of that's really been 100% decided yet.
Sounds expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's good.
I like it. Maybe not making the existing building, so.
I make a motion to approve the site plan for the streets meet locker contingent upon approval of the facade covering. Facade cover.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. You guys are welcome to stay for the rest of the evening if you want, or not have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Remember, we want sandwiches.
Yeah, it's a requirement of approval. So this is item H.4. So this is the preliminary replat for the Goddard Genesis development. This will be followed by item H.5, which will be the final replat for the Goddard Genesis development. So Certified Engineering Design, CED, has submitted an application for replatting the Goddard Genesis development. The replat would help distinguish lots that have ad valorem tax applied to lot compared to those that would be abated per the development agreement. Replat will also help place essential city infrastructure and dedicated easements for the purpose of long-term maintenance by the city and will help distinguish these easements from reserves that will be used for detention ponds and be maintained and owned by the developer's property management team. The city follows the platting process of replatting the same way it would for new plats requiring both a pre-plat and a final plat. A pre-plat and a final plat can be considered concurrently within the same meeting. Final plats must go before City Council for a final decision. The Planning Commission approved the preliminary replat September 12, 2022, and the final replat on the same day. However, due to changes in the layout of the plat to accommodate abatement requirements and the creation of parcel identification numbers, city staff has determined that changes that occurred since the approval of the September meeting are too significant and must be reapproved before the Planning Commission. So you guys have already seen this once. There's been a lot of talk about abatements and parcel numbers and creations and legal speech and everything else, and the attorneys and the county and how we manage all this. And so it required changing the lot layout. And since the Planning Commission approved this in September, the lot layouts changed too dramatically since what was approved. It has to come back before you guys for maximum transparency. So the City Council approved an abatement of a portion of Phase 2 on the development on November 7th. The lots follow the motion by the City Council for abatements which required the revised layout that is being presented today. The county stated that for abatement, each portion of the development needed to have its own separate parcel number to identify what was being abated from what was not. That was the easiest way for them, which makes sense because you want to be able to say this parcel, just like any other lot, is abated and this lot is not. And so this was in line with the development agreement between the developer and the city. Planning Commission is considering approving a preliminary replat for the Goddard Genesis development. There was a revised and approved stormwater management. Like I said, Harlan was supposed to be here and comment on this. He's not, but he has approved it. Land use is commercial. Gross acreage is around 87. Square footage is around 3.7 million. We're abating certain lots versus those that are not. Includes the second phase of the development. So you'll be getting a glimpse into the second phase. Obviously, the second phase, you haven't seen all the site plans yet, so those site plans will have to come before Planning Commission for final approval, but at least they're getting the lot layouts. So this is similar to what you've seen, but there have been some changes. It's easy to view that there's a lot of language on here. We're going to go into the color schematic in a little bit, but it's easier to view it from your agenda packet. This color scheme will help. And we do appreciate CED for what they've done because they did most of this in AutoCAD, which is not an easy software to utilize. But basically what you have here, and this will probably be better to look at, the check marks represent what's abated. Any lots or colors that do not have a check mark are not abated. And so as you can see, a certain amount of parking is in the lot, which allows for that parking to be abated. This land and this parking and this empty land over here is allowed to be abated per the development agreement. Parking adds up over time. Obviously, Walmart's parking lot is appraised at around $500,000, so abating that is definitely advantageous. This was reviewed, at least conceptually, by City Council on November 7th, and so this will have to go before them on December 5th, but it has to come before Planning Commission first, and then if there's any concerns or comments about that, City Council will take that into account. As you can see down here, this is the area that's been promoted for the 6S Bar and Grill and the pickleball. And then the sand sports are right around this area with the parking to go with it. This is for future development. It's just a vacant lot right now. Parking might move up that way as needed to help offset the demand by softball and baseball. As you're well aware, softball and baseball, when it happens, is pretty dramatic. It's very good for the city and the developer alike, but it creates a large demand for parking. The green over here is the hotel, the Genesis, and the Child Care Center is right around this area. This is the splash park portion. The blue, which wraps around this area over here, is for the natatorium, and then purple is for baseball. Gray is the reserves. which are going to be used for detention. Financially none legally approved as the form. It is recommended the Planning Commission approve the preliminary replat for the Genesis Sports Complex Edition. H.5 will be the final plat. And I believe Michael O'Donnell of Genesis is here as well to represent the developer. If you guys do have any questions. Any thoughts, questions? Come on up.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mine.
Back for first and last name, where you live.
Yeah,
Green-
yeah, perfect. Yeah, Michael O'Donnell, address 1309 North High Street, Wichita, Kansas. Just wanted to go back briefly to this. I know, and I think Rodney talked to you today.
I talked to him at 5 o'clock today.
Right. So, and we got the parking fixed there. So the state requires, first off, do any of you have any questions? And then I'll go in. Okay, perfect. So with the natatorium and the Starbomb, the state required that we have at least 600 spectator seats in there because we're going to be hosting very large swim meets for the different high schools and different swim clubs around the state. So having that extra parking in the blue up there was super important. So thank you for doing that, Micah. One of the things that Rodney was asking was this orange spot here. If you went directly, I guess that would be south the way that it's headed, but it's roughly 120 feet by 244 feet. Well, Rodney was wanting to see if we could make that lime green. Did he ask you about that?
Yes.
About making that green and then turning the orange up the next 120 by 244, exchanging those colors to have more parking for softball. Is that something that's possible?
Well, we spoke to him today at 5 o'clock. We decided that to forego that portion of it in lieu of the purple and the blue that's being amended in the northeast corner.
Love it. Okay, good. Yeah, I wasn't aware. So
there was some concerns about where people were going to park off of 199th, and they're going to be accessing Success Bar, the Sand Sports, which part is abated versus not abated, and we thought this was a reasonable layout. And Rodney wanted to go with more parking for the natatorium portion of it.
Yes, sir.
But that wouldn't change the location of the drive, the approach.
No, sir.
Right? Okay.
No, it would not.
Okay.
It would not. No, we need that. And
you're just talking about more parking there to the north of the drive.
Right,
Yeah.
which could happen in the future.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah. We're anticipating the sports bar and the pickleball is fastest growing sport in America. I'm sure most of you heard about this. So that's part of what the Success Sports are going to be. We're going to have pickleball courts, and we're going to have an outdoor volleyball with a like plastic cover to make it year round on there. So should be a very impressive place. Chicken and Pickle, if anybody's been there out in East Wichita, it's exploded. And so this, west side of Sedgwick County really needs something. So we're super excited about getting that started, but we've held off starting anything until we get the natatorium and the splash park open, which is within a month, sometime in December. Any other questions for me around here?
You said you had to start the 6S after the other two are open?
Yeah.
Sometime next month?
Yeah. We don't need any distractions. As you all know, we've been delayed considerably through COVID, construction issues, everything else. So yeah, so hopefully we'll get that started in the spring. That's
that
that's the goal.
Explode.
Well, that's what our market study shows that.
There's no place else to eat. Everybody just looks at the rooftops in Goddard. They don't think. I mean, this is going to draw from Garden Plain, Clearwater, Randall.
With the outdoor activity, we're going to be drawing a lot from West Wichita too, because like I said, mirroring what
Those guys have their own place.
Yeah, well, maybe restaurants, but definitely not outdoor sports. And the city of Wichita has turned, I think, about half a dozen city parks tennis courts into pickleball because it's something for all ages, right? So you can be 80 and play, or you can be 8 and play. So we're super excited about that. So thank you guys. Good point.
Financially, non-legally, it is approved as the form. It is recommended the Planning Commission approve the preliminary replat for the Genesis Sports Complex Edition. Any comments or concerns will be given to the city council on December 5th.
Let's get it, Bill.
Nothing out of you? Wow.
Nothing.
Crazy. Guys, got a motion?
I move we approve the preliminary replat of the Genesis Sports Complex Edition.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is that unanimous?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. This is item H.5. You're welcome to stay for the rest of it if you want. It's going to be a rinse and repeat of H4. So, okay, very good. So H5, final replat, Goddard Genesis Development, the same. The same. This is the final plat, and as you can see, a lot of erroneous material gets stripped from the preliminary when the final is presented because for recording purposes, it's a lot of the preliminary material is for the planning commission, and then when it gets final recording, then they don't want as much material on it when it's final for final recording. Some of the same language, obviously, that you saw in September. All lots are allowed to share parking, all lots are allowed to share access. So there's nothing that would restrict or prohibit one lot from having access to either Grand Slam, Crown Drive, or 199th. As mentioned, reserves are for detention. I believe we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 detention ponds. There was a revised stormwater management plan. It was approved by Harlan, the city engineer, with the increase of impervious surface.
Revised and improved.
Revised and improved. I believe they're offsetting, I think it's, with the impervious, they're offsetting more. They're offsetting more stormwater, as per the usual. I can't say how much, and like I said, Harlan is supposed to be here, being sick. I can't say definitively, but it is a reduction, in case there was any questions about that. We do know that Goddard Road takes a lot of water on, especially in April. You can get inundated. First Avenue as well. So these detention pots should actually help mitigate some of that. Financially, none legally approved as a form. It is recommended the Planning Commission approve the final replat for the Genesis Sports Complex Edition.
You got a motion?
Make a motion to approve the final replat for the Genesis Sports Complex Edition.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Welcome to stay for the rest of the night. If not, have a good one. Thank you very much. This is staff report. So this is the year in review. Normally I give you the year in review in December. We are going to be having some multiple rezoning requests come up in December. So I'm going to give you the year in review now. That way, December we can just get you out of there with your Christmas baskets. You guys will have a good evening. So the year in review. At the end of each year, the community development director, being myself, presents certain metrics of the last year to reflect on the city's goals, accomplishments, and future growth. The anticipation of multiple rezoning requests in December, the community development director will be presenting that information during this meeting instead of December. Goals and visions usually come from the comprehensive plan of the city of Goddard. The city adopted a long-range comprehensive plan for Goddard in 2015. Comprehensive plan sets goals and drives a vision to help guide the city into the future. It is not codified as policy to be adhered to because of its broad nature and the relative uncertainty of the future, but it helps bring perspective and is updated occasionally, usually every 5 years. Comprehensive plan is over 140 pages and cannot be covered in one meeting. I do encourage any of you to check out the comprehensive plan. I do believe it's posted on our website. If it's not, feel free to give me a call and I can send you the PDF, but it is 140 pages, so just be aware. Comprehensive plan is divided into 8 sections listed below. Background for planning, goals and objectives, demographic patterns, land use, housing, transportation, and public facilities, and plan implementation. We're just looking at 2, goals and objectives. So, grounded in broad values consistent with fostering a beneficial human environment for all citizens of the community, goals and objectives are intended to provide quality guidelines for preparation and individual planning studies as well as beneficial influences in the municipal decision-making process, generally speaking. So, generally. Page 15, that's page 15, that's a direct quote. Goals and objectives does have economic development, housing, transportation, public services, and facilities. Community growth and development, open space and recreation, and environmental quality. Here's the goals from those sections. As you can see, they're very broad. Each one of them can be approached from many different angles. Each one of them can be interpreted in many different ways. But for the most part, they're meant to be sort of a guiding light to say we're going to go in this direction. For example, maintain and strengthen the central business district. I believe we just accomplished that today with the Schrutzlocker. So you can say that goal has been met in one way or another. It's certainly with 8,000 square feet of additional retail on Main Street, that will certainly help and strengthen the central business district. So that goal has been met. Assure safe, decent and sanitary housing for all citizens of the community. So you could say that goal has been met today as well with Maple, the Bridger at Maple development. That's more housing. It's going to be safe. It's brand new. It's not dilapidated. It's a brand new development. So that's good. That meets some of the goals as well. Encourage diversified commercial and industrial development. So that goal has been met as well with Camp Bow Wow. It's a diversified commercial development. It's something that we haven't seen before, with the exception, I would say, of the Doggy Boutique. That had a boarding aspect, I believe, to it. I'm not 100% sure, but the Doggy Boutique, which used to be on Main Street, then moved to the industrial district, that had a boarding element. But Camp Bow Wow, for all intents and purposes, is a new aspect, a new commercial development that helps diversify our commercial portfolio. So these goals, as you can see, they're pretty broad, and each goal actually has some objectives below them as well, and so we're not going to go into all that. Because as you can see, this is sort of like Russian nesting dolls, the comprehensive plan. You start pulling it apart, and there's more and more and more and more and more to it, and each of them can be translated independently of one another, and so there's a lot to kind of take into account. But they're all positive in each aspect of it. So let's dive a little bit more into the year in review. So we had a total of 33 counting today agenda items. We had 6 site plans, 11 plats, 3 rezonings, 3 variances, and 10 other. And others would entail everything from voting on the chair and vice chair to anything else in between, street naming or things of that nature. That would be other. The longest meeting we had was 1 hour and 50 minutes, and the average meeting time was around 57 minutes. So in case you're wondering which one was the longest, it was the June one for the rezoning.
Mm-hmm.
So we had over total so far year to date 108 building permits, and this is for building permits. We'll go into electrical, mechanical, and trade permits in the next slide. But we had over $20 million worth of valuation that's been added to the city. We collected over $90,000, 892 of permit fees. We collected over $208,000 worth of tap fees. And tap fees is basically when they want to connect to city sewer or city water. We charge them a tap fee for new meters, etc. And that's what the tap fees are.
How does that compare to previous years?
I'd have to go back and look, but
I mean, up in general, down?
it's about average right now, I would say. We've really, I think 2020 was sort of the best year to average the last 5. If you look at the last 5 years, I think 2020, believe it or not, was one of the best years that we had. I can't say definitively because I don't have that right in front of me right now, but generally, if you were going to look at it would just kind of go up. This is kind of what we see. There's plateaus, but then it kind of spikes and then it kind of goes up again. Kansas was considered, I believe, the fastest growing city between 2000 and 2010, according to the census. I think we've been outpaced by Mays recently. I don't think we're the fastest growing between 2010 and 2020. I think Mays was the fastest growing city. So we hope to take that back. With controlled growth and wise metrics. So that's what we hope to accomplish. But this is probably the norm that we're going to see. Obviously, with all these new developments coming online, as soon as they start actually coming online with the new building permits, we're going to probably see more of this. If this would be the average, and we'd probably see a little bit trending upward. But there may be a slowdown as well, given that rates have increased with the federal fund rate. But we'll have to see what that looks like, and I can't speak definitively on that. So we collected. We had 237 permits for trade permits and other miscellaneous permits. So. By and large, I would believe the mechanical permit, electrical permits, 51 is the highest, followed by mechanical permits. For a total of 237, we collected over $23,000 worth of permit fees. And that is it for our year in review. So this is item J, Planning Commissioner comments.
all at once, Mike.
Great job, Micah.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Great job.
Yeah, thank you.
No, we do appreciate you. You're doing a really good job.
Thank you.
Really
Appreciate that.
good.
It's exciting to see the growth, the new things coming on board, so.
There's definitely a lot of growth.
Nice to see some things actually opening up. Genesis,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
Splash Park would be nice.
Yeah.
Didn't hear him say anything about when the hotel will open.
Yeah, I wish you'd spoke a little more on that. Speaking of Rodney, it's hard to say, but I believe they're turning the hotel over to Rodney Stevens in December. But that doesn't mean it'll be open. It just means that they're turning it over to him. That the Hilton believes that it's at a level of completion that they can turn it over to him, and he will be taken over from there in terms of management and everything else. And so, I don't think we're going to. According to him, he doesn't believe it's going to be open for Christmas, which is unfortunate. However, it should be open before the next season of baseball, softball, so that would be good. Everything else should be open before then. So the natatorium, the splash park, all of that portion of it should be open. In fact, I believe he said he was filling some of the pools today. So
There is a sports bar in the hotel. Is that correct?
so that was a good question, and it's come up quite a bit. The Hilton has said no to the sports bar. Hilton Corporate, which owns Hampton, says no to sports bars in the lobby area. So they can have, I don't know, maybe not top shelf liquor or anything like that, but they may be able to have Bloody Marys, maybe. I'm not sure. But the hotel aspect of it, not so much. That's what led Rodney to have sort of the lazy lagoon area of the splash park have an alcohol aspect to it, where you can get sort of a martini or something like that around the lazy lagoon aspect. While your kids are playing in the splash park, you can hang out there for beer. And that's also what led him to go with phase 2, being that 6S Sports Bar and Grill, which you probably heard about. He's been marketing it on the radio, etc. Since Hilton told him he couldn't do the sports bar in the hotel, he's building it with the chicken and pickle aspect of it, building it over there instead. And that's kind of what led to that, is that he can't have it inside the hotel.
Probably get more room building it offsite anyways.
Yeah, and
You can do what you want.
And the hotel wasn't abated. And neither is the restaurant, bar, and grill aspect. That can't be abated either. So we'll get full sales taxes, property taxes, and everything else to go with that. So.
Any comments?
Next regular planning commission meeting would be December 12th, 2022 at 7 o'clock.
Okay. Motion adjourned.
You need to find a motion in a second.
What?
You need to have a motion in a second for adjournment.
Oh,
I motion to adjourn. Second.
all in favor? Aye. Motion adjourned.
Thank you very much. We have
That's what I get for taking my time.